Thank you for introduction. My many thanks to Zoho for arranging one of the very important sessions on GST, that is decoding e-invoicing. As you are aware that from 1st January 2021, the assessees with aggregate turnover of rupees 100 crore or more are required to compulsory follow e-invoicing. To the assessees with turnover of more than 5 crore or more, it's already applicable from 1st October 2020, and this is going to be expanded further in the future, and many more assessees are going to be covered. So many questions are there in your mind. First, why this is required? Second thing, what are the challenges which you can face? Third, what is the process flow for generation of e-invoicing, reporting of e-invoicing, and fourth and fifth, very critical things, that how it's going to interconnect with GST return filings and e-way bill. In all this process, very important thing is to look at the software support and how this is going to be critical to ensure that your smoothless transition from your local system to e-invoicing. That is one of the most important crux from this session. Now let us look at applicability of e-invoicing, as I broadly covered, to all assessees which are registered taxpayer having a PAN-based turnover of more than 100 crore aggregate turnover. They all are required to follow e-invoicing from 1st January 2021. Assessees with more than 500 crore turnovers, they are already covered and they are following from 1st October 2020. So, and mind well, this is not the end. In the future, this is going to be much more, scope is going to be widened, and many more assets are going to come. So the question will become, why e-invoicing? This e-invoicing concept is new for India. However, it has been already implemented in various countries, which includes Canada, Sweden, Italy, France, others. In one of the case study of France, it was being seen that how this e-investing has done impact, and the result was such that the cost of handling one invoice has been reduced by 96%. Second thing is that the time saving is 80%. Third very important thing, number of invoices handled by one employee in a year is increased by 15 times from earlier. So these all suggest that there is a huge increase as far as the saving of time and cost is concerned. Efficiencies will increase. Now let us understand very basically, principally, how it happens. We're going to focus on various points. However, today when you have to generate one invoice, the first comes the invoice accounting and generation of invoice. Then every monthly you are supposed to send and upload this data for GSTR1 filing. Then you are also required to again immediately use the information for e-way bill for transportation of goods. So there are multiple layers where the same information has been traveling to different things, different layers. Plus there is always the issue of fake invoice and whether the invoice is genuine or not. There are chances of errors. There are a lot of reverse are there. So these reverse also need to be controlled. If the same information, same transactions, same details is to be repeated many times, why not it has to be done in such a fashion that this information can be done without any error, without any hassle. So with this concept in mind, this e-invoicing has been initiated. So what will happen? This also encourage the right persons who want to follow system. Also discourage somebody who is trying to do fake invoicing, and ultimately the persons who's purchased from that, they are going to suffer. So everything happens very fast. So manipulation of invoicing will be less. Second, as I explained to you that these where there is a online RN number is generated, QR code which is generated from system is being placed on invoice, and anybody can verify that authenticity of invoice online. So the chances of fake invoice are reduced. Third very important thing, the tax authorities will get real-time information. There is no need to be worried what will be the sales of last year. Large assets are already covered. They constitute 75%, 80% of the whole bunch. They all are already under giving reporting every day in, day out. So the information will be accessed very fast. The chances of manipulation will increase, fake invoice chances will reduce, and it will provide the ecosystem boost up by way of completely online and electronic. Suppliers also get a lot of confidence. They are surety about this ITC to be received once they received e-invoicing. So I think the advantages are very, very high. We'll also discuss this in detail. Now, before we move further on process part, how it moves, let us also look at the overall idea of how this GST invoice or IRN system works. Before I talk about that, let us understand first very important thing that e-invoice generation is not done by here. It is e-invoicing reporting. So invoice is to be generated in the same accounting software which you are using it. There is no need, there is no requirement, or there is no thing where you to generate invoice online. So it is kind of invoice reporting system. You generate invoice in your own accounting software. After generating the invoices, you have to report that invoice to the portal which is been specified by the government, by the GSTN. So that is the main logic. And once you report that invoices to the portal, they will register, they will validate, authenticate, and after authentication validations, one IRN number is generated, and that IRN number by way of inbuilding in QR code is to be part of your invoice. So let us look at this the very very macro level understanding with the this flow chart. First, rule of supplier. So the PAN based aggregate turnover, if it exceeds 100 crore rupees from 1st January 2021, so all they has to basically generate e-invoicing. Now they are required to comply with e-invoicing. So first stage will come where it will they will push all information to IRP. So IRP is what? Invoice registration portal. That is a portal which is designed, defined by the government. So you do provide all information of invoices to IRP. Now this also gives one very important thing which we all have to understand, that why there's a need of invoicing. Because today the format of invoice of each one is different. Even in the same industry, the format may differ. So there are thousands of industry, thousands of types of products are there. So for everywhere, the format is different. The format is different. It is not. It is difficult to identify. It is difficult to understand. It is difficult to review. It is difficult to validate. However, when everyone follows the same format or pattern, format is different, but the pattern of information to be captured and is readable by machinery is same, then I think the verification and validation becomes very easy. So invoice registration portal, in that all information which are required are reported to IRP. It performs prescribed validations. There is a set of validation methodologies has been provided. Within that validation methodology, it does validations. It look at is that as a duplication of the invoice number. If not, if it is correct, then it will generate IRN, invoice reference number, invoice registration number, and that IRN number will be provided by way of inbuilding in the QR code and signing with the DSC to the supplier, to the person who is generating the invoice. That QR code the supplier will inbuilt in the invoice, and it was issued to the buyer. and IRP will forward this information also for e-way bill. Now, one very important thing is that in the e-way bill, there are part A, part B. So the same information which is being there for the purpose of the invoice generation, the same informations we are required to actually give to various layers, various levels. However, now that is not required. You have to do only once. Once you provide the complete information which is tagged appropriately, thereafter that information will be used, it will be provided, it will be submitted at various locations as required, provided for e generations, and also reported pushed to GST system. So under GST system, I think GSTR 1 is where all the information of supplier need to be provided, where you sell, all your sales bill are provided. So this is the thing, this is already from invoice format. Then 3B payment point of view also you need to look at how to output tax. So again, wherever you file GSTR 1, GSTR 2A, that is based on 1, it is the base for the purpose of claiming input tax credit for a customers. So as you are all are aware, from 1st January 2021, even more than 5% variation is not acceptable when anybody claims input tax credit. So here what will happen, that this information which is captured here, it will be transmitted without any error, without any repetition, without any rework to the GSTR 2A of the customer. So whenever a customer will basically is able to ready to file his return of GST 3B, it can immediately claim input tax credit which is already reflected into here, and for that no extra effort is required to be done. It will be auto populated in GST1, and once it is confirmed it will flow to GST 2A. So if you look at here the whole process, uh, we have covered supplier, then IRP. Supplier can use the same information, and then the buyer is there, and next e-way bill use the same information for e-way bill, and next comes is a GST system where auto population of invoice details into GSTR 1 or 2A. So now, when I talk about this particular very important flow chart, I think the many things are being cleared here. One of the very important thing which I again would like to highlight is that for doing all these informations, JSON file is used. I think we have been JSON file has been now the core system which has been there for the purpose of understanding interoperability and transfer of the lightweight data is being done. So same way the invoice is being transferred or data is provided by way of a JSON file, and then the QR code is generated which is being used. So this will give overall snapshot of the whole process of e-invoicing and iron system. Let us look at now the stepwise process if you want to generate an invoice. Reconfirm ERP system as per PayPal standard. This is the first point which you is required, because I have given you a brief overview idea about how the whole process works. Now again we need to break down it into various parts to understand, as a business registered person, if you are covered, if you are required to comply, what is to be done. You need to first identify that whether your existing software is able to provide the informations, provide and support you in this e-invoicing. If not, you need to identify a good e-invoice software which can really help you in these features, or they may be able to reconfigure your existing softwares. So first, as you will look at, because when I look at the end result from the taxpayers, from the business associate point of view, there is nothing much is required to be done. What is to be done is primarily identification of the right contact person, right channel partners, right software person, and very important thing is also to train your resources, train your staff so that they are able to understand that how it's going to. So first process is you know to first be very comfortable, confident about the software which you are using for e-invoicing. Second very important thing is that the taxpayers gives all the necessary details. That is what is basically it says that the information which is required. As I mentioned earlier that it will standardize all invoicing. Why? Because it has defined the fields which are mandatory fields and defined which are the non-mandatory fields. There are 30 mandatory fields which are there under invoice, and that field mandatory you have to provide. So submission of invoicing, submission of all these details to the portal for generation. Third very important step is that upload the mandatory fields of invoice. So what happens that once you have all information available, then you need to upload. So upload is by the JSON. Now, when you look at these e-invoicing features, they also provide you an option of bulk generation of e-invoice. So if you don't want to report one-to-one invoice, there is also option where you can upload bulk all invoicing together. However, it will generate sequentially, and after generating sequentially, it will give you all invoicing with IRN number. So upload of mandatory fields for that, as I explained you earlier, JSON file. JSON file is going to be the exchange of info. Is been going to the portal, going to the way or medium for exchange of informations from machine A to machine B, from the registered taxpayers to the government portal. Once that is being done, then the information will be forwarded by the IRP to the GST portal. Now, these informations has been really populated based on the requirement from the registered taxpayers. As I mentioned, that a lot of things are there which are required to be done by the IRP. However, from the registered taxpayers point of view, what is needed, you need to submit, upload the relevant informations of invoices. And what will happen, the magic will happen, wherein the information will be auto populated in your GSTR1. It will be used also for e-way bill part A. So that is the brief. Now let us look at the next point is on advantages. I hope that as I discuss about why invoicing, as I discuss about the process of invoicing, many of the advantages which are mentioned, which are listed here, are clear to you. But for the sake of repetitions, for the sake of understanding, this is critical as your staff, as you yourself need to be aware about how it's going to benefit you as a businessman. First, to resolve major gap in data reconciliation. See, now let's just look at in last so many years from the year when the GST has introduced, how much time has been spent for reconciliation. The GST has become a game of reconciliations every monthly, every quarterly, annual reconciliations, and that reconciliation goes on. Now, once you submit all informations once, and that information is only going to be captured at every possible requirement. So there is no point to reconcile. There is no need to reconcile your GST1 with e-way bill or your accounting system with e-way bill or GST1, because they all flow from only one transaction of e-way e-invoicing. So many way, I'm sure that as I also give you example of the case study for France, that uh, cost and time is going to be saved over a longer period. In any change, wherever there's some change, in initial period you have to spend some time on understanding how it can be smoothly implemented, how it is going to resolve major gaps in data reconciliation. Second very important advantage is on reduce data entry errors. I think they both will go simultaneously because your reconciliation will reduce because The the layers of data entries are reduced drastically. Third thing is automation of tax return filing process. As you have generated invoice is done, it is reported to IRP. IRP will forward this information to EVA bill and GST reporting. So automation of tax return filing process will happen. Next is a genuine input tax credit. So one very important thing is input tax credit ITC, which is the always cause of concern for the customer to whom you sell. And as we discussed that there is the limit of not more than 5% variation. Now, if the customer loses the ITC benefit, it's a huge loss to them because of the mistake from the supplier's end. It may have a huge impact on relationship. However, when the invoice is generated at the same time, the headache of 2A or headache of GST1 filing is already resolved. That means what? The input tax credit will be available to your customer. And from government point of view, the issues, the very big headache, very big issue for government is on paying the money for fake ITC. That is also resolved, and the businessman, taxpayer, and the customers of the taxpayers will be more easily they can rely. Yes, this is a very reliable source where they can get ITC without any hurdles. Next point is a lesser possibility of auditor survey. See, as you are already following a genuine system where accounts, GST system, ITC follow up, everything has been reconciled properly because of a genuine improvement from the one particular transaction of e-invoicing, then there is a less need to have scrutiny of the audit. So this will also reduce the compliance cost of the assessees. Now let's look at the what are challenges because we focus on the processes, we focus on the advantages, and let us look at the challenges under invoicing. Security measures. So you have to be very sure about the security level at your software, the transmission of informations, then the reporting of information to IRP is one of the very important thing which you have to be concerned. Sufficient training. Yes, I think initial period your see, because wherever there's some change, in every change, there is a need to ensure training to your staff who is handling. If they are not trained, then there's bound to be mistake, there's bound to be non-compliance, and that can be costly in a longer run. So you have to have the training, hand hold exercise, and having understanding of the software which you're using it, and then migration from a business system which is required, it is to be done. And as we discussed that the following is a very fast output. First output is the invoice generation from accounting software. Second is a JSON file reporting to IRP. Third, generation of IRP unique reference number IRN is generated. And fourth, QR code which includes the IRN. So this is the way it is works. And the flow of invoicing, as I given you brief overview, this is a little detailed one. So supplier will generate invoice and it will be pushed, the invoice via JSON is pushed to IRP. Then IRP will generate validate IRN, digitally sign invoice, check duplication with GST invoice, send authenticated data to GST portal and e-way bill portal, and then send to supplier and recipient, adding QR code to JSON. It is revived, it is received to supplier. Supplier registered person will add this QR code in the invoice format and then issue invoice to its customers, and then recipient will receive a registered invoice details. Again, if you can also verify any invoice about authenticity of invoice that you received. So online you can verify, even you can download application, QR code verification applications, and by use of QR code applications you can verify that particular validity of the invoicing. So you are rest assured about the genuineness of the supplier, genuineness of receipt of ITC, and once that is being validated with the applications or online, you are rest assured about the ITC which is receivable to you. So that is the overall flow of e-invoicing as I mentioned here. And let us look at the mandatory informations. As I mentioned that the certain information is mandated and this is required to be followed on invoice. One more thing which I would like to address here is that the e-invoicing is compulsory for invoice, debit note, and credit note. It is not required for job works or bill of supply or delivery challan. So e-invoice only for three things. Other documents can be notified later on, but to three things: one, invoice; two, debit notes; three, credit notes. There are mandatory fields which are always generally there in all invoices that has to be captured, which includes information for sellers, buyers, document details, line item details, amount details. Implication for users, as I mentioned, that the for users it is just initial transition. After it transitions, it everything is done by the software. Your staff will be more trained, and then the everything will be done very easily. It will result into lot of saving of time and cost. Invoice reference number IRN. So IRN, which includes 64 characters, it is a hash of supplier's GSTN, financial year, document type, document number. So this is for example of a hash which is a part of IRN. This IRN is not required to be displayed on your invoice. On the invoice, QR code is compulsory, and the QR code will include IRN number. So QR code has to be there, and that QR code is generated when you report this information to the portal on IRP. So expectations from the software, I think over the period when I look at the first expectation is that they have to provide a mechanism where you are able to generate e-invoice, comply with invoice requirement, and then the digitally signed invoice can be sent to buyer in whose name invoice is generated, and then the phase three acceptance rejected of invoicing, everything can come over the period. And let us look at the last slide on key takeaways. Now, before our key takeaways, few things which I would like to address here is that cancellation, partial cancellation is not allowed. You can cancel fully invoice within 24 hours. In case if you want to, if it's 24 hours already over, you can cancel by way of by filing your GST returns. So you have to be ready. Invoice applicable of 200 crore or more turnover. E-invoicing is very critical, very important. It's a starting point. It will help the firm over the period. Auto generation of e-way bill, I think one of the very important thing. The many layers of the many layers where the same information is being repeated. That will save, which includes the invoice preparation, e-way bill preparations, GSTR one filing, and reflection at 2A. So the challenges are there, dear friends. However, in my view, the benefits will definitely is going to outsmart the challenges over a longer period. But we have to be ready. So, however, if just take it this a change as one of the more important positive change for you. Yes, I understand during this Corona period specifically, it is really difficult and challenging even to do normal filing, whatever the new changes. But however, just spend a little more time, identify a good software, train your staff. Once the process is being set up down, then I think it will be a boon for you where you can have a longer time, lot of saving of cost and the time. With this, I end my presentation of decoding invoicing, and I hand over this to the charge to Zoho. I'm available there for your questions at the end of the session. And thanks again to Zoho for a wonderful arrangement of the one of the very important topics of decoding invoicing. Best wishes to Zoho and hand over to them. Thank you.